Are ready. We do have the broadcast light on now. And so with that, Madam Chair, if you want to go ahead and open the meeting.
Good evening. I'm calling the Wednesday, April 8th, 2020 meeting of the Palm Springs Planning Commission to order. Can I have a roll call, please?
Roll call. Madam Chair, before we begin the roll call, I'll just notify that this meeting is being conducted via video conference. We have a quorum of 4 planning commissioners who will make up our quorum today, and any input to this meeting can be given via telephone, and we have the city clerk here to take public comment via telephone. With that, Ms. Hintz, if you'll call the roll, please.
Commissioner Donenfeld is excused. Commissioner Irvin?
Present.
Commissioner Hirschman is excused. Commissioner Lewin is excused. Commissioner Song?
Present.
Vice Chair Maruzzi?
Here.
And Chair Wormack?
Present.
4 members present. We have a quorum.
Can we get a report on the posting of the agenda, please?
Madam Chair, the agenda was posted on Thursday, April the 2nd. This meeting has been noticed and posted in accordance with state law. Madam Chair, just one other point of order before we begin the meeting today. Just a reminder to the planning commissioners or to the city attorney that you should turn off your microphone when you're not speaking just to avoid any echo or feedback. And then if you are watching simultaneously on channel 17 or via the city internet site, you need to turn the volume on your TV or computer down. With that, we'll go ahead and begin. Madam Chair, if you want to go through the acceptance of the agenda.
I do just one point of order. Given that we have 4 commissioners here today, a quorum is 3 as to be able to pass, to take any action.
That is correct.
Does anybody have any issues with the agenda? Basically, are there any issues with the agenda, or can I get a motion to accept the agenda?
I'll second. I see Maria's first.
I make a motion to accept the agenda.
And it's seconded by Commissioner Maruzzi. Can you call the roll, please?
Commissioner Irvin?
Sorry, I was on mute. Yes.
Commissioner Song?
Yes.
Vice Chair Maruzzi?
Yes.
And Chair Wormack?
Yes.
Motion passes.
The next issue is public comment. I've been told that there are no members of the public that have called in for public comment.
Madam Chair, that is correct. However, we do have the applicant for item 3A and the applicant for item 4A who will be commenting under public comment as those are not public hearing items.
At this time has been set aside for members of the public to address the Planning Commission on consent calendar and other agenda items and items of general interest within the subject matter jurisdiction of the Commission. Please note that the Planning Commission is prohibited from taking any action on items not listed on the posted agenda. 3 minutes is allowed for each speaker. Testimony for public hearing may be offered at this time. Members of the public or applicants would like to comment on items 1A, 3A, and 4A are directed to comment under this section of the agenda.
With that, the clerk
would contact members of the public who wish to comment.
Okay, we will go ahead and line up our first speaker.
Hello, David Pratt.
Hi, David Pratt. This is John Meyer calling from the City of Palm Springs here at the Planning Commission meeting. If you're tuning in, I'd like to just ask that you turn down your volume on your television or computer.
Yep, I just muted it.
Great. Okay, and so starting with public comment, you'll have 3 minutes to address the Planning Commission. And,
Great.
And please state your name for the record. Thank you.
Hi, this is David Pratt. Should I just go? Am I on now?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Well, thank you for the opportunity to address you tonight and for your efforts to carry on in the face of these difficult circumstances. On October 10th, 2019, as the ownership of the Riviera Resort, we came before this commission seeking entitlements to convert a portion of the resort from a hotel use to a timeshare use. Coming out of that meeting, the commission asked that we return with follow-up on a few key items, namely a traffic plan and efforts to address noise complaints from the neighboring condominium community. First, let me address the traffic plan. We have submitted to the planning department an updated traffic plan. In order to address the concerns of our neighbors, part of the updated traffic plan includes closing the portion of our drive closest to the Riviera Gardens from 10 p.m. to 8 a.m. This traffic plan will remain in place following any conversion to timeshare. In order to address the noise complaints, we have held 2 meetings with the neighbors. First, on November 1st, and then a follow-up meeting on January 8th. As a result of those meetings and neighbor feedback, we have made a number of changes to address the issues, a few of which I will highlight. One key complaint was noise coming from our recycling bins and trash compactor at night. We've increased security to keep unauthorized individuals from searching for bottles and cans at night, and we have modified our operating procedures to ensure that the trash compactor is not operated between 10 p.m. and 8 a.m. To address noise from our mechanical equipment, we have replaced air conditioning units, installed upgraded silencers and insulated blankets on our cogeneration plant, and are in the process of installing a more efficient chiller to reduce the required load on the cogeneration plant. We've added shields to parking lot lights, and in 2 locations, removed the lights altogether when the shields could not resolve the issue to the neighbor's satisfaction. To better respond to neighbors' concerns, we implemented a dedicated hotline that is routed to a cell phone carried by the on-duty security guard, who now keeps a log of complaints, their investigation, and resolution. In order to further understand the issues, we've engaged a sound consultant and installed monitoring equipment. We have found that since upgrades to the mechanical equipment, the noise emission has significantly decreased. We continue to look for ways to better train our staff and improve our facilities to reduce the noise and to be good neighbors. And that's our report. We were asked to return and report, so that is the report we have. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Pratt, for your comments. That will cover the.
Please stand by, and we may ask you questions when we get to that item on the agenda.
I will stand by, and if you need to call back, I'll be available.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pratt.
Thank you very much.
Madam Chair, we have one speaker for item 4A. The city clerk is currently dialing that individual.
Thank you.
Please leave your
we're going to try a second number.
Hi, Glenn.
Hi, Mr. Foster. This is actually John Meyer. I'm calling from the city of Palm Springs here with the Planning Commission meeting.
Hi, John.
Hi there. I'd like to ask you to turn down your volume if you're listening in at home. And also you'll have 3 minutes during this public comment period. If you can, just state your name for the record and we'll start the clock now.
Now, can I ask you a question? Are we going to 4A now, or we're the applicant?
So right now we're taking public comment for item 4A for the Pinnacle Point. Basically, we're taking your comments now for 3 minutes, and then if the commission has questions, we'll give you a call back during that item.
Okay, but we're not public. We're the applicant, not the public comment. And Glenn said that we were going to be doing this around 8 o'clock tonight.
Yes, Mr. Foster, this is Flynn. Because your item is not a public hearing item, you may make your comments and presentation now in the 3 minutes that you have, and then we will call you back later when we get to that item if the Planning Commission needs additional comments or needs questions.
Got it.
Okay, so you have 3 minutes now to go ahead and make your presentation.
Okay, can everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, hi, this is Brian Foster, the applicant for Pinnacle Palm Springs, LLC. This is regarding the home at Pinnacle Point, a hillside home. And I'm sure all of you have had a chance to read your information regarding this house. And this particular home is right next to Lot 2, which was previously approved and under construction. And there's also Lot 7, which was approved, and that one's under construction. Lot 10, which is across the street, that home has been approved and in plan check now, building plan check. The conditions on this site are similar to the others, and the style of the home is consistent with the others. And we're hoping that we can get approval today. So if you have any questions, feel free to let us know. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Foster. We'll call you if there's any questions from the commission. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Are there any other members of the public who've called in?
Madam Chair, that concludes the public comment portion.
Thank you. The public comment portion is closed. The next item is the consent calendar, and it's the approval of the minutes of March 11, 2020. And this item, I believe Commissioner Song was absent, so this item would take 3 members of the commission to approve. Are there comments or is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve. I have no comments.
I'll second it. Would you call the roll, please?
Commissioner Irvin?
Did someone say Commissioner Irvin?
Yes. Can I get your vote on the minutes?
Yeah.
Commissioner...
I agree with the minutes.
Commissioner Song?
I was absent.
Vice Chair Maruzzi?
Yes.
And Chair Wermick?
Yes. The minutes have been approved. The next item is a public hearing item, Simon's CRE Summit 3 LLC, representing the 7-Eleven for a conditional use permit and a major architectural application for the construction of a 3,071 square foot convenience store and fueling station located at 444 North Palm Canyon. Staff report, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Earlier today, the slide presentation that I'm going to go through was emailed to the Planning Commission, so you can follow along as I go through the staff report, and then it coincides with the slides. So the applicant today is proposing to construct a 3,071 square foot convenience store and fueling station located at 2444 North Palm Canyon Drive, which is at the corner of North Palm Canyon Drive and Racquet Club. Currently, there is, I'm looking at the first slide, which is an aerial photograph, which shows the corner of the lot, and the yellow dashed line is the outline of the lot that is proposed for the new convenience store and fueling station. So if you look at that first slide, you'll notice that this shows the corner with the Del Taco, which is a current tenant and resident, who's in that pad site, and that will remain as is. I'd like to point out that there are two driveways, one that comes off of North Indian Canyon Drive, and that will stay as is, and another driveway that comes off of West Racquet Club that runs along the Del Taco and will enter the site also. So the current two driveways will provide access to the site. Previously, this site is considered part of what was known as the Art Colony. Back in the 80s, there was a retail center that was built here and was demolished, and today's conditions are what you see now. So moving on to the next slide, it is a site plan showing the orientation of the buildings to the street. So when the project was first reviewed as a pre-application, the buildings were a little bit oriented differently. The retail portion was at the bottom of the site to the south, adjacent to the Adriatic Hotel. But it turns out that when they came in to do submit the actual application, there are easements that run through the lot. There are active Edison easements that prohibit the building to be placed at the south end of the lot. So that was the configuration that they're proposing today, which is to place the building at the rear of the lot with the canopy towards the street. So in the third slide, it shows the circulation going onto the site, how their trucks that will bring fuel to the site will circulate around the property. When the AAC reviewed this project back on February 3rd, one of the comments that they had was that was to increase the grassy area or landscape area that is at the entrance to the lot, and you'll see that the parking that is along the street is bumped out a little bit or moved away from the lot line or the sidewalk to provide a larger area for landscaping. And we're going to see some landscape plans in just a bit. So moving on to how the site sits adjacent to the street. So Palm Canyon Drive sits about 7 to 8 feet higher than the site that they're proposing to construct. So the site section exhibit, which is in the packet in your slide presentation, shows how the street will be viewed from down onto the lot and how it is 7 feet taller. So this sort of orients you as to how the property will sit a little bit lower. And this exhibit shows the building and then the proposed canopy. Moving on to the landscape plan, you'll see that landscaping has been enhanced along the street, along North Palm Canyon Drive. There's a series of shade trees that are on the site. There's a perimeter plantings that are behind the building that will separate to the future residential. I would like to point out on this slide, the very top of the slide, there's an exhibit that shows the type of wall. I know it's kind of difficult to see, but the zoning code requires that there be a wall or a berm placed along North Palm Canyon Drive to shield the parking that will sit several feet below the street itself. So the exhibit at the top of this slide shows a combination of a berm and a decorative landscape wall with landscaping around it. The landscaping that's proposed continues up Palm Canyon Drive and around the corner of West Racket Club. That was one of the requirements that this planning staff requested, that they make it the whole way along the street be consistent in landscaping. If you've been out to the site, you know that this site is kind of devoid of landscaping, so this will greatly improve the views as you come down the street. At the very bottom of this slide, there's a blow-up of the treatment at the corner. So they're proposing to add a decorative sort of walkway, a bench for someone to sit on, and then landscaping with a mature tree there to anchor the corner. Moving on to the architecture. When the project went to the Architectural Advisory Committee, there were a series of requirements that they had made recommendations. One, in terms of the building architecture, you'll see that the AAC wanted a canopy that went across the front of the building, that because this elevation, the front elevation, which is the bottom one, faces west, and this will have direct sunlight in warmer temperatures. And the AAC had requested that they extend the canopy across the front of the three windows, which they have done. So the building materials that are proposed include plaster stucco in a light beige color for the main body, and composite wood E-base siding on vertical elements in a brown color, composite wood cladding in a Tudor brown, aluminum storefront frame system in a dark bronze, and the aluminum canopy over the front door in a dark bronze color also. As you can see, there are a series of horizontal banding with large vertical elements which extend the height of the building to a maximum of 24 feet. So the top portion of the building will be 24 feet, and they use a variety of parapets at different heights that add volume and massing. The lower parapet is 14 feet to the roof line, so the inner portion of the building will be 10 feet tall. This is a slide showing the elevation of the back that will face the residential portion when it's developed, and then the side that faces the hotel to the south. Moving on to the fuel canopy, and here's a series of 3D renderings of what the site would look like. So when the canopy was first submitted, it was a typical prototype canopy over the fuel pumps, and staff worked with their project team to redesign this fuel canopy to be more original and similar to a 1950s or mid-century sort of feel. And the AAC reviewed this canopy. Let me go to the canopy. And had some suggestions on how it would be constructed, which you'll see that these are 10 by 10 pipes that are angled that will hold the roof, 10 by 10 columns that will hold the base of the underside of the canopy. The AAC wanted a structural drawing of how this would work, how it would drain, and how it would be supportive of the canopy roof. And that's what this, the one slide that's in your packet, which shows the dimensions and the radiuses and the angles of how that would be constructed. Moving on to other slides, there are renderings of site simulations of looking from West Racket Club beyond the Del Taco. There's a rendering of the fuel pumps and the building itself. There's another rendering looking east from North Palm Canyon Drive towards the fueling pump canopy. As you can see in this rendering, it sits lower than the street. So when you enter the driveway, it will descend into the site. And this is a closer up version of what the canopy will look with the building in the back. One of the discussion items that the AAC had and staff has been working with them is a photometric plan. As you know, some of the canopies, we don't want it to glow or be bright underneath. So I provided a blow up of the photometric plan, which shows the types of light illumins that will be underneath it. The first plan that they submitted did not meet the outdoor lighting code standards. This plan that's presented to us today does. So they've cut the lighting in half from what they originally had proposed. In your packet, there's also a cut sheet. The AAC was concerned of what type of lights would be underneath the canopy, so they would not be too bright or have light spill. So they proposed a type of version of the light that has a lens that's retracted so that it does, the light will beam down and not out to the surrounding streets and sidewalks. In your packet, there's also a floor plan showing how the building will circulate inside, a roof plan showing mechanical equipment. With the use of the parapets around the building, the mechanical equipment would not be visible. Even though the building sits below the street, the applicant feels that they will still not be able to see the mechanical equipment on the roof. So looking at parking, they're proposing to have parking spaces throughout the site on the north side and the south side. So they're required to have 15 spaces, and they're providing 32 spaces. The 32 spaces are around the retail portion itself, and this does not include the spaces that are part of the Del Taco site. So if we go back to the overall site plan, you'll see that there are spaces that include the Del Taco, and there are spaces that are around the new building. So the AAC wanted to eliminate some of the pavement, and that's why they moved the parking along North Palm Canyon out a little bit to provide greater landscaping. So if we talk about signage for a minute, the proposed signage is not part of the package today, but they have provided some examples of what signage they would propose or come in with. And I want to go to some pictures of the current conditions because there are some signs that are out there right now. If you go through your packet of the photographs of current situation, you'll see that there is a monument sign at the corner that has Del Taco on it. That sign is proposed to stay there. It's not part of this application. However, 7-Eleven may add to that sign and revise it a little bit. In the plan that they're proposing, they do add a monument sign at the corner of the entrance into the retail center. As you know, gas stations are required to post signs of their pricing, so they will be doing that. And that we don't see that today, and that is not part of the conditional use permit application. So the site has been, the area has been notified within 500 feet of all property owners, of all residents current that are renting or living in apartments. Staff has not received any other information or comments. In your packet, there's also a series of conditions of approval. And you'll see that there's planning conditions, there are conditions from the fire department and also engineering department conditions. Rickman Harris from engineering is here if you have any questions regarding engineering conditions there. There's a letter from the applicant, and we'll have them on the phone in just a minute. Chair, I think that concludes my report.
Are there questions for staff? If you'd raise your hands. I'm seeing no hands. I have some questions for staff. In the conditions, is there a condition for bike racks?
Yes, I think we added, there are bike racks located adjacent to the building itself, and there's also a bike rack that is at the corner of Racket Club and North Palm Canyon Drive. But looking at the conditions, condition planning number 4 says bike rack to be provided on site for use by patrons.
Thank you. And then can you explain the circulation on this in terms of, are you anticipating that the only people who would be able to use this are the people who are the entry is only north from North Palm Canyon? Or can people turn coming south?
So if you're coming south on Palm Canyon Drive, you would be able to make a left-hand turn. However, it would, let me go back to, if we go back to the first site plan, you would have to block the lane of traffic that's going south on North Palm Canyon Drive to make the turn in. The engineering department can address some of the conditions relative to the traffic signal at the corner. They're asking for some improvements to that traffic signal. So if you're coming west on West Racket Club, you could turn into the driveway adjacent to Del Taco and come into the site. If you are leaving the site, you could make a right-hand turn and go north on North Palm Canyon. You could also turn south on Palm Canyon Drive, but you'd have to wait till traffic cleared to make that turning movement.
And then the street going into Del Taco on Racket Club is an improvement of that part of this package?
That is already existing, and from my knowledge, there's no improvement needed. I will like to say that North Palm Canyon Drive is a state highway, so any work that's done along North Palm Canyon would have to go through Caltrans and seek their approval.
But there's nothing proposed. Just the Racket Club entrance is not in great condition.
I'd have to refer.
Okay, I can ask the applicant about that. And then my other questions go to the discretionary, the CUP. This is an area that's in the north is pretty much a food desert, and I'm wondering how you made this second finding, which that the use is necessary and desirable for the development of the community. Can you explain your rationale on that? And isn't it a duplication of the other services? We already have another 7-Eleven when you get to Vistacino.
Right. So that finding number 2 in the resolution references, is it necessary and desirable, and does it meet the objectives of the general plan? So when you look at the general plan, which is mixed use, multi-use, having a commercial establishment there, I feel meets that requirement, that it's harmonious with the relationships of the other commercial uses which are there. So if we remember when 7-Eleven, well, first off, so the 7-Eleven across the street, which is at the corner of the west side of North Palm Canyon, that will not be there. It will move over to this location. So that is, that one convenience store would not be there once this is constructed. And the applicant will be able to explain that better than I would. So when the 7-Eleven on Vistacino opened, there was a discussion of providing what kind of food services would be provided inside the store. And I remember distinctly them describing the types of food that they also sell besides, sodas and candy. And they may want to explain that. But staff feels that the nature of it being mixed use and multi-use, being a commercial development similar to the auto-oriented Carl's Jr. Del Taco across the street, and then the old the shopping center that is at the corner, the north side of where the McLeans have their business. We feel that it conforms.
Thank you. Can I ask that same question to our attorney? Staff referred to this as the general plan designation, but my understanding this is part of the discretionary action of the Planning Commission in terms of whether it's necessary and desirable for the development of the community. And I think we have wider discretion than what's in the general plan. Am I correct?
Thank you. Madam Chair, can everybody hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you. Yes, it is consistent with the general plan designation. However, you are correct, Madam Chair, that a conditional use permit does give you some additional discretion to make or not make that finding number 2 about the use as being necessary and desirable. That said, there would have to be, facts in the record justifying the finding or negating the finding. So if the Planning Commission believes that there are facts showing that this use is not necessary or desirable for the development of the community, then you could determine that that finding cannot be made and deny the CUP.
Thank you. Are there any other questions for staff? I'm seeing no hands. The public hearing is opened and the applicant has 10 minutes to make a presentation.
Madam Chair, we are... Yes, we are contacting the applicant now.
While we're waiting, is the reverb after Maria?
I heard my name. Can you guys hear me?
Hi, Ben. This is John Meyer calling from the city of Palm Springs. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can.
Okay. I was just calling regarding the public hearing item 2A for the 7-Eleven project. I was hoping that you could turn your volume down at home if you're listening in, and following my comments, you'll basically have 10 minutes to give your presentation to the Planning Commission this evening.
Yeah, okay. I'm ready.
Okay, and if you'll state your name for the record, we can start now.
All right. So my name is Ben Millick. I work for Simon Commercial Real Estate. We are the developers on the project that's here in front of you today. First off, I really appreciate you and the city's efforts during this hard time to keep the project moving forward. It really means a lot to me and many other people in our industry to see these projects continuing as planned during these times. So we really appreciate that. So we are a commercial real estate developer based in Scottsdale, Arizona. We specialize in retail and general commercial properties throughout the nation. But here in Palm Springs specifically, we are under contract to purchase 3 parcels on the southeast corner of Palm Canyon Drive and Racket Club Road. These parcels consist of the vacant parcel on the hard corner, the existing Del Taco, and this parcel that is planned to house the new 7-Eleven, which is why we are here today discussing this project. Previously, this site, as Glenn mentioned, was a shopping center that has since been vacated and demolished. And on-site conditions right now are the existing concrete building foundations and slabs that have been in a vacant state for years now. So this is our first project with 7-Eleven, and we are very excited to get this built and get this blighted vacant site within city limits redeveloped. So it's a nice active site for the city.
So as I stated, 7-Eleven is the tenant. We have a ground lease agreement with them. That pretty much means that we as a developer will be providing the horizontal improvements, which is the site improvements, off-site improvements, landscaping, utility extensions, etc. And 7-Eleven will be providing most of the vertical elements, which includes the building for the convenience store, the fueling canopy, and the fueling system and dispersion. I have 7-Eleven's representatives ready to call in case any questions come up regarding 7-Eleven as a user. So just to reiterate some of the project overview here that Glenn did a great job describing. The reason we're here today is to pursue major architectural application approval and conditional use permit approval, allowing these fueling operations on site, which I think is considered more of an auto service in the code. Glenn gave a great introduction to the project, described it almost perfectly, and I thank him for that. I'd just like to continue a brief overview to help guide in case anything was missed. So it's approximately a 3,000 square foot convenience store building with a great modern design with mixed in mid-century design elements. Along with this building, there will be 6 pump islands that serve up to 12 cars at a time for fueling. And the canopy design itself is a unique mid-century style per the city's request that'll help continue the architectural history and character of this Palm Canyon's preferred design style for auto service stations. I can let Donna speak on this more later. The site plan itself has been modified a few times, as Glenn stated from the start. We had that original plan on the southern property boundary with the rear of the building facing the rear of the hotel. Since then, we have found that active Edison easement, which made us rework this site plan and get creative. So essentially, we have modified the site plan, rotated the whole site plan 90 degrees, so now it's facing Palm Canyon, and the building is located on the eastern property line, adjacent to the future residential. We honestly believe this to be an even more beneficial layout for all parties. There's a nice improved buffer between our building and the hotel that involves landscaping, parking, and it also benefits 7-Eleven facing Palm Canyon with better visibility. We provided those site cross sections and many renders to the AAC to show our new intent and design, and we appreciate their recommendation of approval for this new layout. This site plan, since it's directly adjacent to that future residential user, we are installing a 6-foot perimeter wall along our property boundary with that enhanced landscaping per the city request to keep a nice buffer between the residential and the commercial. But we do not want to block pedestrian connectivity, so we are extending sidewalks to our property line and gates at the rear of the building so that a future user to the east can connect to our site and access the 7-Eleven facilities via pedestrian gates and sidewalks. Landscaping, we are proposing some great landscaping improvements along the Palm Canyon frontage and Racket Club frontage. And then our landscape architect has created a nice special feature on the hard corner that involves a nice paver walkway, built-in seating, a bike rack, and this is all meant for the community and the local pedestrians to better promote walking and biking in the area. And then to touch on signage, so Glenn said that the Del Taco sign on the corner is to stay. That is true. We are proposing to modify this sign. Right now it is only a sign for Del Taco. We would like to modify it and retrofit it just to have 3 panels, 1 for each parcel that we are purchasing on this corner. And 7-Eleven will be using one of those panels along with Del Taco. And we also propose to construct a monument sign for 7-Eleven, and the required fuel pricing will be included per standards. And Donna might be able to touch on that more later as well. And then to touch on the circulation questions from Madam Chair, both driveways currently have full access drives, allowing all turning possibilities into and exiting the site, both on Racket Club and Palm Canyon. And for the Racket Club driveway, your concerns with that, I personally have used this driveway when I visited the site in the winter, and I did not notice any issues with it, and our plan as of now does not include any improvements to this driveway. So I just wanted to make that clear to you, Madam Chair, and the Commission that as of now we have no improvements to that portion of the off-site work. So we have a great design team on this project and also on this call tonight to assist me. We have Donna Metzger with Tate & Associates. She's the representative for 7-Eleven. It's my understanding that Glenn can call into her and answer any 7-Eleven questions as the user of the parcel. She can also answer any questions related to building design, canopy design, or fueling design questions. And then I also have Alan Sanborn able to call in. He's our civil engineer. He can answer all the more of the horizontal design, the site work, off-site improvements, utilities, and drainage. And then if there's any questions for me, I can answer on behalf of the owner developer, and any questions involving agreements or the purchase of these properties, I can help answer. So with that being said, it's my understanding that I can hand this off to Donna to speak on 7-Eleven's behalf. I appreciate you listening to me today. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Millick. We'll call in Donna right now, if you bear with me. Thank you.
Thank you.
Question for staff. What is the timing right now?
We have 2 minutes left.
Thank you. You'll let us know when we're at 10.
Yes, we will.
If you bear with us, we're just having some minor technical difficulties.
Okay. Madam Chair, we're not able to reach the representative of 7-Eleven. The number that they gave us is not functioning. And so with that, the applicant still has 2 minutes left on their presentation. If we need to bring them in later, we can do that. Mr. Clerk, there are no other public comments in line?
That is correct.
Okay. So, Madam Chair, there's no other public comments at this point in time. If you'd like, we can have the applicant come back for questions of the Planning Commission.
I think that would be good. And if you can still see if there's any way you can reach the people from 7-Eleven, that would be great.
Okay. We will go ahead and attempt to do that.
Are there questions of the applicant? If you'd raise your hands. Commissioner Maruzzi?
Don't we have to wait until the applicant's on the line?
Okay. Mr. Maruzzi, you may go ahead and proceed with your question.
Yeah, there was a question raised earlier, or a comment about the existing 7-Eleven on the opposite side of the street and what's going to happen to that and so forth.
Are to move that store to this location and upgrade from the that old store, which is only a convenience store at this time, to a new store with fueling. And then that old store will become a vacant store once they move.
When you say vacant store, do you mean that it will be empty and available for, or will it be demolished, or what?
I do not know because we do not own that property, so it would be up to whoever the owner of that property is to do as they please with that building and a future for that parcel.
So you're leasing it, and so the owner will have responsibility for the building itself.
Commissioner Marucci, do you have more questions of the applicant?
Well, I'm looking at the plan here, and I'm trying to determine where this third vacant parcel is. Is it on the corner of Racket Club and North Palm Canyon Drive? It's not a very large.
Correct. It's a small parcel to the west of the Del Taco.
And do you have any plans for that space?
We do not at this time.
Okay. That's it for me.
Anyone else? Commissioner Song? Go ahead. You're still on mute. Commissioner Song, you're muted.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. All right, so the question had to do with, number one, you have plenty more parking spaces that are required because of the fact that you do have some room around the building. Could you consider using one or two of those parking spaces to make them into an outdoor eating area? Because you do, part of your product is you do sell sort of coffee and bakery goods or sandwiches in which people could eat outside of the building storefront, especially with the nice canopy that you have built. That's one question.
Yes, I think.
Second, go ahead. Do you want to respond to that?
For that first question, yes, we are open to installing a nice patio for you and for future pedestrians.
By taking one or two of those parking spaces around the building?
Correct. We are open to doing that if the city desires.
Okay. I am one of your customers, so I think this is a much improved project. The second question is there are quite a bit of hotels and motels in the area. So I know that you have installed a pedestrian walkway off of the gas tank. I would like for that walkway to be a little bit wider and more generous so that even the bicycle can take a shortcut on North Palm Canyon to come into your store. Is that possible?
That is definitely possible. I think you're talking also, if you notice, we have a pedestrian connection to the right-of-way sidewalk on the southern side of the parcel. If you're mentioning widening that sidewalk to be wider, I think it is possible, and we would be open to that.
Okay, very good. And then the last question is the bike rack right off the corner. I like the treatment that you're doing in order to reward the community and so on. But it's also a very bare kind of corner. And so I'm wondering if you, by putting the bike rack, it would probably get damaged and not heavily used. I think the bike rack near your store is more useful and practical.
Yeah, so I can touch on that. I think the intentions of the design here, speaking for the landscape architect, were envisioning people riding their bike along one of these streets, and this would be more of a stopping point where they can have their bikes rest at the bike rack, and they can sit in that nice landscaped area and improve pathway in the built-in seating that will be provided. So it's more envisioned to be like a resting place and resting spot within the city versus a long-term bike storage.
Okay, that makes total sense. Thank you for that explanation. Those are all my questions. Thank you.
Madam Chair, we've lost your volume.
Thank you. Commissioner Irvin, do you have questions?
Not at this time. I don't have any questions. Thank you.
Okay. I have some questions for the applicant. Can you describe what you're saying is additional food service?
I will need to revert that to 7-Eleven's representative, and I believe she just messaged me and says that the city found a way to call her in so she can speak her 2 minutes on it. So I would like to divert that question to her and any 7-Eleven use questions.
Okay, and then do you have any plans to upgrade the Del Taco, the exterior? The comments that I had driving in is it didn't feel friendly coming in that drive. It felt kind of uncomfortable as a member of the public going into that drive-through.
Going into the drive-through or the driveway?
Going in the driveway and then going through the drive-through. It just feels like it's a building that's pretty dated, and you're buying the entire parcel, so I'm wondering if you have any future plans of upgrading that facility.
At this time, we are just planning to purchase this as is, and we haven't discussed upgrades in the near future. But this being a long-term tenant, there is the potential needs for upgrades in the future. So if we hold this Del Taco building for the long term, sure, there probably would be some upgrades needed in the near future. But as of now, in this proposal, we have no intentions to do any upgrades to that Del Taco besides increasing the landscaping along that frontage.
And the additional parcel, just in terms of circulation, would they be circulating through the same entry that handles the gas station and the 7-Eleven? Or would they be coming through the back or both? Would they be able to enter both on North Palm Canyon and Racket Club?
Correct.
Just in
both
future
driveways, the Palm Canyon driveway and the Racket Club driveway both give access to all three parcels that we are purchasing, including the 7-Eleven portion that we're talking about today and the Del Taco and vacant pad. And it also gives access to the eastern future development as well.
And if we could bring the representative in from 7-Eleven, does anyone, I have some questions. Does anyone else have questions for 7-Eleven? No.
Okay, Madam Chair, we'll go ahead and dial the number for 7-Eleven, the representative from 7-Eleven.
Thank you.
Hello.
Yes, hello. I was trying to reach Donna. This is John Meyer from the City of Palm Springs.
Hi, John. It's Donna.
Hi, Donna. Yes, I'm here on behalf of the Planning Commission meeting, and you'll have just a little over 2 minutes to make your brief comments and then stand by for commission questions.
Sure.
Okay. And if you'll state your name for the record and then turn your volume down, and if you're listening.
I turned my volume down. Am I ready now, or when do I go?
Yes, go ahead. Thank you.
Okay. Hello, my name is Donna Metzger. I'm with Tate & Associates. We are the representative for 7-Eleven. I know I have a short amount of time, and I know one of the questions from the chair was regarding the merchandise and food. With the demands of the consumer constantly changing, 7-Eleven has been shifting its focus on becoming more of a fresh food destination, where consumers can get their traditional convenience store items, but also be offered a quality product for everyday from breakfast to dinner. So their fresh foods include in-store prepared foods, bakery products, fruits, vegetables, organic products, and specialized regional food products. Obviously, along with general merchandise and the tobacco-related products as well. And obviously, the store does the lottery tickets, petroleum and diesel products, and also the beer and wine. This store will be the same franchise owner from across the street who took over the franchise in December of last year. So that store will be closed, and he will be relocated directly across the street to the new facility. 7-Eleven seeks to be an integral part of the neighborhood and continually evaluates products and services for the needs of the local community. Stores are encouraged to hire from the local population and to become involved with the local schools and kids clubs in order to give back to the residents. This store plans a 24-hour-a-day, 7-day-a-week operation, and will have 2 to 4 employees per shift. I'll keep it short and sweet. If you have any questions for me, I'm here to answer.
Madam Chair,
yes.
If you have any questions.
Are there any members of the commission first that have questions? Then I do. The north side of town is pretty much a food desert. There are no supermarkets. And I was wondering what your plan is. Are your plans to sell fruits and vegetables and prepared food something that's up to the party that's running the store, or is it something that 7-Eleven dictates?
7-Eleven dictates. And as I had said, they've been expanding on more of a fresh food destination where to go along with the growing the growing times. I mean, everybody's going with the fresh foods and the organic products, and 7-Eleven is following suit.
Are you doing that in your other stores currently in Palm Springs?
You know what? I'm in the development side. I really haven't been in the other store. I can't really honestly tell you. I don't know.
Okay. Thank you. Are there any other questions for the applicant, for 7-Eleven or the applicant? Seeing none, thank you very much. And the public hearing is ended. This matter is before the commission. Comments from the commission, Commissioner Maruzzi.
I just want to reconfirm. The corner of the property is going to be landscaped by the applicant, so it doesn't look as unkempt as it does now. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. They're going to extend the landscaping from along Palm Canyon up around the corner to West Racket Club.
Which is a good idea because it certainly could use a little freshening. I'm still worried about the empty building across the street. I know that the property owner is not doesn't have to tell us what they intend, but I can see that becoming a blight. I hope not.
Sorry, Commissioner Song.
Yes, can you hear me? Okay, good. I'm in support of this project with the 3 items that I have mentioned to the applicant. In addition to that, I would like to add a DG or sand stabilizer for that 3rd parcel area that is going to remain empty. And that's the comments I have.
I'm going to have to learn to unmute all the time. Commissioner Irvin, do you have comments?
Are we, I know Maria just gave a recommendation. Are we giving the recommendation now, or are we just?
It's just your general comments before we get to motions.
Okay. All right. Well, I don't have anything. I just, you know, we still need to address that food desert, and I don't know if that project is going to address that food desert issue that we've had for more than 15 to 20 years out there in that area.
Thank you. Any other comments? I have some. I'm having a hard time supporting this, both because it's the entry to our community. I like the landscape. I'm troubled by creating a vacant storefront across the street for exactly the same purpose. And I'm not sure that I can make that it's necessary and desirable finding for this particular use. I'm not sure it's necessary and desirable to put in another gas station and another 7-Eleven when we have 2 others in the entry to the city. So those are I share those. I share Commissioner Marucci's concerns. Where I'd like to see this parcel developed, I'm not sure about the use. Commissioner Marucci.
Wasn't there a supermarket originally on this property? It might have been just this parcel. It might have been a larger parcel that I think was to the east or southeast.
It was currently at that location. It was a Lucky's Market.
And it's been quite some time since that's been gone, huh?
Yep. Alpha Beta's before that.
So if this 7-Eleven goes into that space, does that remove any opportunity for any other type of retail operation or commercial grocery in that corner, in that whole? It's a large parcel. This is only a portion of the parcel, right?
Right. So the overall portion from Palm Canyon the whole way to Indian Canyon is part of the Art Colony project. However, the portion that's to the east is residential. It's always been planned that it would be a mixed use. So the portions along Palm Canyon Drive would be the commercial, and the residential would be to the east, and that would extend the whole way to Indian Canyon. Could they come in and ask for more commercial? That's possible. But right now we have this site, the Del Taco, and then the little pad site on the corner.
So you're saying that the only developable commercial portions of this is this 3-parcel configuration that we see now? This is the only place that could be developed commercially?
That was always the intent, that the frontage along Palm Canyon would be the commercial portion.
So I'm wondering if there's enough land for a supermarket or any other type of food establishment to go in there if it's not 7-Eleven.
Does anybody else want to respond to that? I have a question for Flynn along the same lines. I would think that the food desert is probably one of our most important goals for the north side of the city. Could any of the commercial or the residential portion of that site be changed to allow for some kind of larger commercial use or retail use that might include more food?
Yes, Madam Chair, as Mr. Malacker has indicated, it is a possibility that the back portion of the parcel, which has frontage on Racket Club, could be rezoned to a commercial designation, which would allow a grocery store use. But again, they would have to go through the process of rezoning the property and coming before the Planning Commission and City Council to get approval for that.
Didn't we, I don't think we approved, but we reviewed a project, I don't know, was it 2 years ago? Residential project that was supposed to go on that parcel, the residential parcel on the east, and what became of that?
We had a work study or work session on the Art Colony project. The current owners are the ones that presented the plan several years ago, so they are selling these parcels to Mr. Millick's group. So yes, you have looked at the Art Colony project. It has disappeared over the years.
So is it the current, the group that's proposing the 7-Eleven that is purchasing the residential portion?
No, let me rephrase that. So the underlying current owner is called Gray Mar Del or Gray Del Mar. They are selling this portion, these three parcels, the Del Taco, the 7-Eleven, and then the pad site to our applicant.
So we have no idea if they're planning on selling the rest of the residential portion and so on and so forth.
Well, they've had. We periodically have discussions with them of how they will be developing that. We've talked to them about a condo complex, assisted living facilities, and so on, but nothing has materialized.
Commissioner Song?
Yes, I want to point out that there is a development. It's 111 Racket Club right north of this property, in which the commercial spaces have had a challenge in getting those spaces rented. And in order to power up or energize this corner and this development, we need more housing. And the pro forma is in how many people are going to be purchasing from a future supermarket that we would like in this area. I mean, if there was a Trader Joe, sign me up, but I'm sure they need to have the numbers of people who will be buying and purchasing. And right now, the 7-Eleven is the store to go to buy things in that neighborhood. And we have to consider all four corners of this intersection and the fact that we need more housing in order for more businesses and greater variety to be available.
Commissioner Irvin?
Yes, and in that area, speaking with what Maria is saying, there is a couple of projects that will be built there. We also have something that will be coming off of Highway 111 and are actually on Indian north, and in that area we already have 7-Eleven markets. We need a grocery store there at that location. I think that is something that's really needed. A 7-Eleven market brings a certain type of traffic, and that area there in Palm Springs doesn't need that. The McLeans have came in across there purchasing the Loman's Plaza, and it's doing pretty well.
Commissioner Irvin, do you have a motion? Or does anybody have a motion to make?
Well, I'd like to hear more from you, Kathy, Chairwoman.
In terms of, I'm not going to support this. I don't feel like I could make the major architectural findings. I have no problem with the design. The major issue is whether this is necessary and desirable for this use to go in here. And I'm not sure that it is. So that piece of the discretionary use, I don't feel like I can make I can't make that finding. And that's the second finding.
So isn't the concern, though, that it's a very small parcel that a supermarket could not go there? So what other type of commercial are you thinking of for that parcel?
Well, I'm just not sure. The hard part for me is you put the fast food together with the 7-Eleven, and I agree with Commissioner Urban that it brings in a different kind of traffic. It actually doesn't support the uses that are across the street, and we're also creating a vacant space across the street. So I'm not sure what else could go in there, but I'm not sure that this building up the area, enhancing it is really important to the entry to the city. And I'm not sure that this particular use combined with the Del Taco enhances the entry to the city. And we already have several 7-Elevens. So that's my concern. So I'm having a hard time. Obviously, if there are 3 people that are in favor of it, you don't need my vote on it. But I'm not sure I can make the second finding in the CUP. Commissioner Maruzzi.
Are you concerned, though, that we may end up with the current condition for quite some time, which looks quite blighted?
Yes, but I'm not sure I still can make that finding.
Yeah, I'm having a tough time with this based on what you have to say, but I'd like to listen to Commissioner Irvin.
Commissioner Irvin?
If I can say, I've been in quite a few of the business retention meetings, and the mayor and also Christy Hostage has kind of made it a little bit of a project that they're looking to do. For the time being, there was a fine food bank, mobile pantry that's been offered there in that area for the time being until we can find a grocery store or some sort of a grocery store to put there at that location. So I know it's on the agenda for some of the things that the Business Retention Subcommittee is looking to make that one of the projects of what they're doing going forward.
Do we know what the council member for that area?
Commissioner Woods, or City Council Member Woods, former Commissioner Woods.
At what point is it appropriate to find out the opinions of since we're in district situation now, of the representative of that area, and that person's, so I guess, Council Member Woods' opinion of what might go there that's more appropriate for the community.
Madam Chair, let me go ahead and respond to that question. This item would not normally come before the City Council. The Planning Commission has final action of the conditional use permit and the major architectural application. And so consequently, it isn't appropriate for us to ask the council member's opinion. However, if this were to be approved or denied, the council could pull the item forward to discuss it and offer their opinion on it at that time.
Commissioner Song.
Could I ask the Glenn or Flynn? I believe in that area, it's been a very long time since we had any improvements. It's a rare corner. I hear that it is the gateway to Palm Springs, but we're having a viable business that's going to go across the street, and we have a building that's going to remain empty, but it has potential to become another business because it's already built. And it has some characteristics, I believe, that the architecture is worthy to be evaluated. But if this project doesn't go forward, I understand. I would love to have a supermarket or a specialty market, but I believe the area doesn't lend in the area to have enough parking to draw that kind of design. So if we don't have the room for what we desire, and a business has been already running for many years and they're successful, and now they're expanding by moving across the street, and it's still benefiting the needs of the sort of the quick retail needs, that is beneficial to the fast pace that we live in Palm Springs. In addition to support also the guests that are being more pedestrian in that area and having now a way of walking up and getting to the stores. So I started with a question and I kind of answered it myself, but the last time that a project has been committed to this area for the art colony, I believe it has been about 15 years.
Right.
So we want to not consider this project because we want a project that may not be, the yield design may not yield to it.
Are you making a motion?
Yes, I'm making a motion to approve the project with the comments that I have made earlier. And I can list them down.
If you can list them.
One is to make the walkway wider on the south end of the property. 2 is to revise the 2 parking stall closest to the front entry to make them into an outdoor eating area. And 3, to add DG stabilizer in that empty third parcel in which no landscape is proposed.
So those amendments are to the major architectural, and you're also moving the CUP.
That's correct.
Okay. Is there a second?
I want to hear a little more from Commissioner Urban, because apparently you're more familiar with what has been there, and is the food bank something that is viable? Is something that you're saying that the Business Retention Committee has been talking about? But I mean, there's a lot of discussion about things, but is there any reality to this, and is that the appropriate long-term use, in your opinion?
Yes, so the Business Retention meeting, it's been going on for maybe about 3 or 4 months. We started with the process of just speaking about the grocery store food desert there in that area, and we gradually moved quickly to having Fine Food Bank step in with the city of Palm Springs and providing food for the community. Currently at this time, the Fine Food Bank has been delivering over 400 to 500 meals on the first and third week of the month there at the James O. Jesse Desert Highland Center. And we've been going through at least 300 or 400 bags of food, giving them away there at the center. We've been showing great improvement. I believe that there's a study that's put in place there currently with the Business Retention that's showing that it supports that we do need a grocery store there, and it is a food desert. And like I said, it's been, it's moving quickly, gradually fast from 3 months ago, just having a discussion, to currently having Fine Food Bank provide food for people there at the location there in Palm Springs. So it's moving in a positive direction, and now we're starting to get statistics to show that we do have enough people there at that location to show that we need a grocery store there. So it's moving pretty well.
So I'm assuming that you would not support this motion, hence no second?
Yeah, that's correct.
Well, there you go.
So is there a second for the motion? So the motion fails for a second. Is there a different motion?
Commissioner Urban?
Yes, I will motion to deny it.
Is there a second?
Yeah, I'll second it.
Would you call the roll, please?
Commissioner Ervin?
Excuse me.
Yes for denial.
What'd you say? I couldn't hear you, Peter.
I think it's yes for denial, correct?
That is correct.
Yes for denial.
Commissioner Song?
Yes for denial.
No.
Commissioner Maruzzi?
Yes.
And for me, it's yes for denial of the CUP, not the architectural. Flynn, we don't have to do those separately?
No, you do not have to do them separately. It was my understanding that the motion was to deny both the applications.
Then the answer, then my vote is yes. The motion fails. 3. And is that a quorum for our purposes tonight?
Yes, it is. The motion passes. The motion to deny passes by a vote of 3-1.
Thank you.
Can you confirm that if it was a vote of 2-2, it also is a denial?
That is correct. That a tie vote is tantamount to a denial.
All right, thank you.
So is your vote, you haven't changed your vote, have you? Okay. The next item, does anybody need a break? Or can we go forward? I think most of the items should be quick.
I'm okay.
City of Palm, 2B, City of Palm Springs to amend Palm Springs zoning code sections 910010931300 and 932314 relative to development standards for accessory dwelling units and junior accessory dwelling units.
Madam Chair.
Report, please.
Madam Chair and members of the Commission, thank you. There have been some recent changes to the regulations pertaining to accessory dwelling units in state law that became effective on January the 1st. Because of those changes, we need to significantly update our ordinance. The purpose of the changes is to address the state's current housing crisis and also to remove regulatory barriers that cities have imposed on the construction of accessory dwelling units. In terms of the ordinance itself, one of the terms that is new to the ordinance is JADU, or Junior Accessory Dwelling Unit. And that is described as an accessory dwelling unit that has 500 square feet in area or less. It's contained entirely within a single-family structure. And one of the unique things about the recent changes to state law is that it now permits a junior accessory dwelling unit on the same property as a single-family residence and an accessory dwelling unit. In terms of our ordinance, we are proposing that we call the accessory dwelling units after the following 3 types, which is modeled on the state law. The first is type 1, which only requires a building permit to allow the accessory dwelling unit. The second is type 2, which requires what's called an accessory dwelling unit permit, which is an administrative permit handled at the staff level in addition to a building permit. And then the third type is accessory dwelling units that don't conform to either types 1 or type 2. Those would be permitted in the city via a conditional use permit. In terms of the type 1 ADUs, these are the following that would be permitted via a building permit. So on single-family properties where you are converting existing space, either a living space within the residence, a garage space, or even an accessory structure, that would be allowed via a building permit. Or any new detached accessory dwelling unit that is less than 800 square feet in area and that provides at a minimum 4-foot setbacks from the side or rear property lines and is less than 16 feet in height. Again, that would be permitted solely by a building permit. For multifamily properties, this is something that's also new under state law. Type 1 ADU would be permitted within existing space of a multifamily property. So any existing accessory structures or garage structures could be converted to units. There's a limitation in the ordinance in terms of how many units could be converted there. And then it also allows 2 new detached units at any existing multifamily property, provided they have a minimum of 4-foot setbacks from side and rear property lines and are no greater than 16 feet in height. So that's the type 1 accessory dwelling unit. The type 2 is one that requires the ADU permit in addition to a building permit. But again, this is handled at an administrative level. It does not require a discretionary hearing. In terms of the type 2 ADUs, a studio or a 1-bedroom would be limited to 850 square feet. A 2-bedroom unit would be limited to 1,000 square feet. So those are the limitations in state law. As with the type 1, they also have to have a 4-foot setback and are limited to 16 feet in height. There are some additional architectural requirements in terms of conforming or being consistent with the principal structure on the property, and then landscaping requirements to provide buffers between the ADU and any adjacent properties. Finally, the type 3 ADU requires a conditional use permit, and this would be an accessory dwelling unit that doesn't conform to either the type 1 or type 2 standards. And so it would be a discretionary action that would be permitted by the Planning Commission. There are also new general requirements that apply to accessory dwelling units. In terms of parking, it does require 1 space for each accessory dwelling unit, except for the following circumstances. No parking is required where you are converting existing space to an accessory dwelling unit, and no parking is required where certain alternatives exist, and those are listed in the ordinance itself, such as being within a certain distance of a transportation stop, there being available on-street parking, etc. There are also other restrictions in terms of the use. The rental term is a minimum of 30 days for an accessory dwelling unit. There is a requirement under state law where owner occupancy of the property is required after January 1st of 2025 for any units created after January 1st of 2025. There are also deed restrictions that must be recorded where the property owner acknowledges conformance with those requirements, and then income reporting requirements. This is to help the state in terms of addressing the need for affordable housing. One of the other things that's required under state law and in our proposed ordinance is that the property owner would be required to provide notice 10 days before construction starts to the adjacent properties of the intent to construct an accessory dwelling unit. That concludes my presentation to you. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have on this particular ordinance. Thank you.
Are there questions of staff? Commissioner Song.
Commissioner Song, we don't have any volume from you.
I'm sorry, Flynn, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now.
When a brand new home residential plan is coming together, can they also piggyback it along with this accessory dwelling unit in order to build a larger house footprint?
Not the single-family house, but the accessory dwelling unit. There are certain allowances in terms of lot coverage that are permitted in order to encourage the construction of accessory dwelling units, but not the principal residence.
Okay. Correct. So this could be in addition to the requirements for R1A to build a accessory dwelling unit.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? Flynn, can you I have one for the city attorney, which is, does this apply to properties that are also conditioned by HOAs where they don't allow accessory dwelling units or they don't allow subdivision of the existing, like allowing a rental of a casita? Do you know how that would apply?
Yes, Madam Chair. We've looked into this, and we believe that this state law would apply to HOA-governed properties. And so it is effectively preemptive on HOAs, and they would also, to the extent that accessory dwelling units are consistent with the state law and this ordinance, they'd have to allow it.
So if an HOA has casitas and doesn't currently allow them to be rented out, they would be allowed to be rented out?
If they meet the standards of the state law and of the ordinance, yes. The question would be whether some of those pre-existing casitas meet the definition of an ADU or a JADU under the ordinance and under the statute.
And do they require a kitchen as well as a bathroom?
My understanding is all ADUs and JADUs require self-contained facilities, including kitchen and all that.
Thank you. And then, Flynn, can you explain I'm concerned about the 30-day requirement. I know that that's a requirement that allows something to be a long-term rental, but a minimum of 30 days in Palm Springs is often a vacation rental. Can you explain what the income reporting is, and does that help create long-term affordable housing?
The income reporting that is required by the state requires that any owner of an accessory dwelling unit or junior accessory dwelling unit has to report once a year on the rent that's being charged for the unit itself. However, there isn't any limits or any guidelines in terms of what that rent should be. So there aren't any restrictions that way. But again, it's a reporting tool, so at least the state is able to take an assessment of how much affordable housing is being provided through the use of accessory dwelling units. I don't know that that's a way to achieve the goal of making sure that it's long-term housing, but the state law is a requirement that it has a minimum of 30-day rentals for the ADUs and JADUs.
And can we be more restrictive within what the state requires and require a longer rental period so that it has more of a chance of being permanent housing?
Yeah, I had posed that question to our city attorney, and the recommendation was that we keep it at the 30-day requirement. I believe the justification for that was that we might open ourselves to litigation if we do something different than what the state requires. There is also a need for month-to-month housing, and so that's one of the reasons why I believe that language is in the state law, if I understood the indication from our attorney.
Okay.
Yes, I can clarify that point really quickly. With Type 3, with the CUP type ADUs, we believe you probably could do something like that because that's a CUP use. With the Type 1s, we read the statute to say if they're limiting to 30 days and no longer, they still get their building permit. And as Flynn had mentioned, our recommendation with the Type 2s is that we leave it at 30 to deal with month-to-month tenancies and that. It gets a little murky legally when we go beyond 30 days with the Type 2s.
Okay. Does anybody else have additional questions? I could take general comments or I could take a motion. Commissioner Song.
Yes, I make a motion to approve the, I'm sorry, I lost it. To approve the amendment to the planning, to the zoning code relatively to the accessory dwelling unit requirement.
And do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Good. Could you call the roll, please?
Commissioner Ervin?
Approve.
Commissioner Song?
Yes.
Vice Chair Maruzzi?
Yes.
And Chair Wormack?
Yes.
Motion passes 4-3 absent.
Okay. Does anybody need a break, or should we just go through, continue going?
Let's go through.
Okay. Item 3A, ARE Palm Springs LLC, the Riviera Hotel, for a 3-month review of a conditional approval relative to noise issues for mechanical equipment and special events at the Riviera Hotel, located at 1600 North Palm Canyon Drive. Staff report, please.
Thank you, Chair. What I'll be doing is referencing some photographs of the PowerPoint presentation that was emailed to you earlier today. So I know you can't see this on your TV screens, but if you all could look at some of those, the slide presentation we're going to go through over now. So the Planning Commission reviewed this project on October 10th, 2019 to convert 163.
Just a question, does anybody need to go through the slide presentation? I think we've seen this once before, haven't we?
You did see this.
Is it possible to get a shorter report?
Right. Okay. So let me go right to some slides at the very end of the presentation, right here. So there were some questions about what is the noise emanating from. You have several emails that have been given to you from the residents that are at the Riviera Gardens, which is adjoining this property. So in the picture that shows the white box, this is the driveway that is between the Riviera Cogen plant, which is what we're looking at, and the Riviera Gardens adjacent property. I'm sorry, Peter.
This image number 6. I'm trying to figure out, looking at this, 6 of 13, or what image is it? 1,
2, 3, 4. Yes, image number 6.
All right, thank you.
The 6.
Glenn, were those sent by you? Because I don't believe I received them.
Yes, I did email those earlier today.
So they were sent by who would the email have come from?
From me.
From Flynn?
Yes.
Or Glenn?
From Flynn.
Ah, okay. I didn't see them. Thank you. I'll look at them now.
Okay, so on this slide number 6, the white box in the middle is the cogen plant that has engines that run that convert the cooling water to air condition and heat the hotel. In the next slide, this is the other side of the cogen plant, and the cinder block wall that is in front of you here, this was done back in October, right before our meeting, to help be a buffer of noise to these units that are sitting on the ground that are not inside a building. If I go back one slide, this is the trash compactor that they'd come in empty bottles in at night. And once again, this is the driveway that is between Riviera Gardens and the cogen plant and the trash compactor, and it's around 70 feet, 75 feet to the residents there in Riviera Gardens. So there's been a question about a new piece of equipment that's being installed. This is behind the cogen plant, and if you see all these pipes, right here, these gray girders, this is where the new piece of equipment is going to be placed. That will be a chiller that is, as Mr. Pratt mentioned in your testimony earlier, that will be a quieter mechanical piece of equipment than what is currently there. And we may want to get Mr. Pratt back on the line to discuss that, but this is what where this new piece of equipment is going to go on the other side of the cogen plant, and you'll see the hotel in the back. So staff is recommending that we continue our noise monitoring once this new equipment is in place. The city will pursue all remedies and penalties to limit decibel readings. If there are 3 violations within a 3-month period, then the city will start doing penalties based upon those noise going over the noise limit, and then the Planning Commission to review once again in 3 months if you should so desire. So in your packet, there are some additional correspondence, as I mentioned, and the code officer, Mitch Noblin, is on his way here. He'll be here to answer any questions you have regarding how noise meters are, how the noise meter is read at the site. He's the one who's been going out in the evenings and responding to questions from residents. So that concludes my report, Chair.
Madam Chair,
Thank you.
I might add to that, at your meeting of March the 11th, you took testimony from individuals who wished to speak on this item. You had those minutes in your packet today that you approved earlier on your agenda. Individuals making public comments on March 11th were Maureen Fitzpatrick of Riviera Gardens, testifying about the noise issues with the property. You had Mark Jeffrey from the Riviera Hotel, who spoke to the measures that they've put in place to try and address that. And then you also had testimony from Karen Reyes, who is a resident of Riviera Gardens, also talking about the noise issues. So with that, I just wanted to remind you that on March 11th, you did hear testimony relative to this item. We do have the representative from our Code Compliance Division here, who is also available to answer any questions you might have. Thank you.
Thank you. Should we start with, do people have questions of code compliance? Commissioner Maruzzi.
I think it would be very helpful for me at some point, I don't know if this is the right moment, for Mr. Malacker to address each of the items that were raised in these letters that we have, because it's hard for me to follow the chiller versus the code gen versus the, it's a little bit complicated. So I'd like each of these items to be addressed that are in the letters that we received so that I can understand what the response is. I don't know if it's now or later.
That can be now before we get to code compliance. But just before we do that, maybe we could get a sense of what the other questions are.
From me?
Well, maybe Glenn can do that. My question is, the letters say that code compliance comes out and doesn't do any citations. So
there are other issues raised, though, that had to do with new construction and whether or not this, I don't know, this block wall was effective or...
Okay, if I could. So to answer Commissioner Maruzzi, so if I look at the letter that was sent to us from Maureen Fitzpatrick and Karen Reyes, if we look at the third paragraph down, they're asking, we hope the sound monitoring system will include all the mechanical area. Does it? How will this be monitored? Once a piece of equipment is submitted for building permits, they need to supply some sort of cut sheet or rating that would talk about how noisy the piece of equipment is. I did speak to the building department today, and the new piece of equipment has received a building permit, and that's what they're installing. I did go out to the site last Thursday, and I spoke to the foreman that was on the site, and to get his sense of what this piece of equipment, will it be loud or not? So a chiller takes water and they blow air through it and it cools the air. So there's no motors that run with this new chiller. So, and maybe Mr. Pratt could describe it better than I could, but that's one of the questions from the residents. And I did respond to these questions today to Ms. Fitzpatrick today. How does keeping garbage areas so close? How do we lower the noise by the trash? So, as Mr. Pratt said, that they have altered how they have security now that keeps any kind of vagrants away from taking the bottles out of the trash, which they're saying. I'm going through these. He talked about the traffic pattern to help trucks and buses that travel through at what hours. There's comments about beeping sounds after hours. Mr. Pratt can most likely answer that question. As I mentioned, we do have code officer here who can respond on how they do the monitoring, when they're called out, and what kind of enforcement they're doing.
I still would like to hear from Mr. Pratt as to the answers to those questions that you weren't able to answer at some point.
We can do that.
Is Mr. Pratt the applicant or
Mr. Pratt is
Mr. Riviera, or is he the code enforcement officer?
No, Mr. Pratt is from the Riviera Hotel, who testified earlier. We called him earlier.
Why don't we call him back after we hear from the code enforcement officer?
Mitch, you want to go ahead? Just tell him how you... Your mic on.
Sorry. Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, everyone. So my name is Mitchell Nabhan. I'm the code compliance officer assigned to the case. I've been on the Riviera Hotel noise monitoring since September. So for responding to complaints that we've gotten over the last 6-7 months, we'll go out and we'll take 3 separate readings, all from the reporting party's property line. The first being the property line nearest the cogen building, in between the reporting party's unit. The second reading is taken from just outside of the reporting party's actual unit, which is a little bit further away. And then the third reading that we take is on the shared property line nearest the cogeneration building. And we measure anywhere from 3 minutes to 5 minutes at each section with our decibel reader. We calibrate it every 2 weeks, and I like to calibrate it before we go out there. I've been monitoring every single week since the beginning of the year, typically sometime between Wednesday through Saturday in the hours between 10:30 p.m. and 12:30 a.m. That's kind of what the process is that we go to measure. Oh, I've been out, so hard to say. Complaints, since I've had the case, it's been about 58 complaints. And in that time, there's only been one period of time where there was an observed violation where the noise coming from the reported area was over the permitted limits. In that instance, I did reach out to hotel management, had a meeting with them, gave them corrections. The corrections were made within the time frame, and since then, that was January 9th. So since January 9th of this year, I've gone out every week, and every time I've done a measurement, whether it was in response to a complaint or it was done just as proactive, continuous monitoring, the noise level has been within the permitted limits for the time of night.
Does anyone else have questions? Follow-up questions?
Well, I just want to understand a little bit about if there's a beep coming from the reverse of a truck. Certainly, you're not going to be out there for the 30 seconds or a minute that's occurring. Are those some of the complaints? I mean, you said there were 58. Were there some that you wouldn't be able to measure because they would have ended by the time you arrived?
That's correct. So a large amount of those complaints were done in either the hours outside of our coverage. So it would be the hours after 1 a.m. So there was a handful of complaints that were done around 2 a.m., 2:30 a.m. Of the 58 complaints, there was probably about 10 of them that also included, in addition to the noise coming from the cogeneration building, about trucks backing up or loading or unloading taking place. In response to those, there were 2 instances where one of the reporting citizens has my work cell phone number. A call was made, and I was out there within 6 minutes of the reported unloading activity. I wasn't able to observe it, and I didn't find any signs of any loading or unloading being taking place. So as far as the trucks, the backing up noise, that's never been observed. But a lot of times those complaints are they're being called in so they're being called in between the hours of 1:30 and 3:30 in the morning when there's no code compliance coverage.
All right, but it's not really fair to say that of 58 complaints, only one when you could, because clearly there were a lot that occurred when you weren't able to test. It's outside of your normal work hours or whatever they are. So the 58 number I'd say is not that helpful, but thank you.
How many of the complaints were outside of your coverage time?
I would say about 2/3.
Okay. Commissioner Irvin?
Are the calls coming from multiple different people, or is he seeing the trend of the same people are making the phone calls, or is it just multiple?
So in the time that I've had the case in September, it's been one reporting party.
For all 58?
Correct.
That seems odd. But the letters were from more than one person. Correct, Mr.
Right. The letter is from Maureen Fitzpatrick and Karen Rios. They both live within in the units that are most closest to the cogen plant.
And I would assume one of those people is the person that made the 58 calls?
Correct.
All right, so I guess the point is that since it's close to where they live, it is reasonable that they would be the ones that would be calling. All right, thank you.
How many of the calls were about the cogen plant, and how many were about trucks backing up, and how many were about the noisy trash compactors?
So of the 58, I would say 56 included the cogen. There was only 2 complaints that were exclusively for trucks backing up or loading or unloading. And then as far as the trash, those were always those would be paired with noise complaints in addition to the cogen HVAC system being noisy.
So somewhere in there is the discussion of, remind me about this, the cogen plant, is there going to be modification or something to address these noise concerns?
Right. It's my understanding that there is a piece of equipment that is going to add more baffling or muffling of the equipment. And once again, the hotel representative could answer that better than I could.
At this point, do we have any more questions of the code compliance officer, or can we call the applicant back? Glenn, can you call the applicant or the representative from the hotel?
Yes, we'll go ahead and do that right now. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Answer that better than I could.
Hello, dear Brett.
Hi, Mr. Pratt. This is John Meyer again with the City of Palm Springs, and you're on behalf of the Planning Commission meeting. They have a couple questions to ask of you.
That sounds great.
I believe Commissioner Maruzzi had questions.
Well, this cogen plant and the issue of noise that seems to be the biggest issue for the complaints that have been recorded. So what is being done to address the noise issue with this machinery?
Yeah, I've been listening in, so I've kind of heard all the discussion thus far. Let me address a couple pieces of it. So one, when we got that feedback, we were testing and continually, and as Mitch shared, he went out multiple times. Now, they were all related. All these complaints were related to the cogen. That is not a singular spike event. So when you say the calls came at outside of the operating hours. He's been out there every week and tested, and we've been in compliance all but one time, right? So that's not a truck or a difference. We've always stayed in compliance on that. Nevertheless, in order to address Marine's concerns with our mechanical equipment, we have made substantial improvements. So we ordered a time back, but it took a while to get the equipment. But we installed new silencers on the equipment and new insulated blankets on the equipment to further reduce the noise. There was an air conditioning unit that was making, higher than normal noises. It's still not exceeding the allowable limits, but it was, we observed it to be noisier than we thought it should be. We replaced that unit. We have serviced all the other air conditioning units surrounding the cogen, tightened up, all panels so that there's no rattling going on. And really done everything kind of in our power while we have been in compliance on that noise. And I can address the two instances where there were truck issues, and I can talk to that point. But while our cogen has stayed below the limits required, we have made substantial investment to further reduce the noise, and have observed improvement in that since those changes have been made.
Commissioner Marucci.
When were those changes made?
So they've happened over a period of time. It was probably 3 weeks ago that we were able to replace the air conditioning unit, and then the silencers and exhaust blankets finally arrived and were installed on March 20th. So some of these, these are pretty specialized pieces of equipment, so the parts take a while to be received. So we ordered them kind of back following the meeting where concerns were brought up again in June 8th, and we've since made. We ordered those parts and have since received them and installed them, and have seen about a 5 decibel reduction from what our reporting shows us. So we have seen kind of material improvement since that time.
Are there other questions?
And let me address the two truck issues. There was an instance where our grease trap vendor, who comes and cleans our grease traps, came by and inexplicably came by at 3 a.m. They're usually scheduled to come during the day, and we had a new security guard on duty that night, and who didn't understand all of our protocols. Everyone is trained that if anyone arrives at that time, they are sent away and not allowed to perform any work at that hour of night. We have contacted that vendor and reiterated that they are not allowed to come at that time, and only between after 8 a.m. are they allowed to come and do that work. They come about once a month. This was the only time we've ever had them show up in the middle of the night, and that was a complaint that should have been stopped. We've trained that, but trained for that. But this was a new person that somehow had not gotten that training. So that was one instance. And then the other, they received an early delivery of linens, and again that linen delivery, we've met with that vendor. They are supposed to do all those deliveries at 4 p.m. And for whatever reason, they came outside of those hours. But to ensure that can't happen, we actually physically closed that road between 10 p.m. and 8 a.m. now, so trucks cannot go down that road. And so that those two instances, we have addressed with those vendors, and then also taken further precautions to ensure that they can't drive down that road.
Are there other questions? Commissioner Song, do you have questions?
Actually, yes, I do. But I'm not sure if the applicant or the staff asked it during staff.
If you want to wait till we get to staff, since we have the applicant online, unless you want to ask the applicant the question.
Are you familiar with the record that has been included with the records from the police department for calls for service?
I have seen that record, yes.
Okay. I don't see anything after February 21st. Do you know if you have received complaints recorded from the police department to you after the final improvement that you have made on March 15th?
We have not seen anything from the police. In addition, we have seen little to no complaints on our hotline. So the neighbors have not reached out since we've made those improvements, to the best of my knowledge. So we have seen reduced complaints. We haven't seen complaints, and we have not seen any contact from the police department.
And number two, just shortly, can you tell us what are the steps you take to educate your staff about the you have stated at the very beginning during public hearing?
What steps we've taken with our staff?
What are the steps that you take with the staff so they are informed and educated about the changes that you're making or you've made?
So in the food and beverage department, we have daily trainings. We do stand-ups with our staff, and we've implemented procedures that they cannot use the trash compactor after 10 p.m. It is that's not super convenient for us because obviously our restaurant stays open later, but they hold any waste and run the trash compactor the next day. For our security staff, we have adjusted their patterns that they patrol so that they go past these areas more frequently to ensure that there aren't unauthorized people going through our trash compactors. And then we've also implemented this hotline. So the staff, the security staff actually carries a cell phone that we've provided the number to the neighbors next door so that they can call directly with any complaints so that we can address them immediately. So it's, all parties that would have kind of any interaction with the changes that we've made. We continually review that in new employees as well as ongoing training.
Okay, so just to reiterate, that security staff has not received any calls since your March 15th improvement?
That's my understanding, yes.
The hotel may be closed after the county's order with coronavirus, so that maybe the applicant could speak to what their occupancy is and whether the cogen is continuing to operate.
Yeah, so the cogen is continuing to operate. The city put out their order to close all lodging facilities on March 24th. So since that time, we have not had occupancy. However, the same number of cogen engines that we run have continued to operate because the load on the facility is, it still requires it. And without getting kind of specific, we are still running the cogen in the same fashion as previous.
Commissioner Song, it's still your floor.
Yeah, I am done with my questions. Thank you.
Commissioner Irvin, do you have questions?
No, I don't have any questions at this time.
I have a couple which are the neighbors that have complained have suggested a certified sound wall or or I guess more efficient machinery, less noisy trash compactors. Can you speak to the sound wall issue, or for me, why you haven't considered sound baffles on all the walls surrounding the cogen?
So we did actually build a wall based on their feedback, and we have put in more efficient equipment. We replaced an air conditioning unit. We've done these silencers, and and then to the question of further improvements, there's a cost associated with that. We have made significant investment to address the concerns raised by Maureen. But as Mitch stated, our cogen system, he's been out there multiple times, more than weekly, and we have not fallen outside of that allowable limit. So we have made improvements and brought our system down beyond the requirements of the city, but we have not been out of compliance, with all the different times they've been out there, and our cogen has continued to run, and we made further improvements.
Thank you. Are there? I think there are no more questions of the hotel. Are there any others? Thank you very much.
You're very welcome.
This matter is now before the commission. Commissioner Maruzzi.
I would like to have this come back in 3 months and just find out what the results are of these improvements.
I'll second that.
Before we do that, can I ask staff if we should do it in 3 months or 3 months after the hotel's open again?
If that is the will of the commission, that would be appropriate. As you know, the date of opening may not be till June.
Right. Currently, it's June 17th.
Cogen plant continues to operate regardless, and that's where the noise is coming from.
I think that was a technical question of staff. Does it make any difference that the hotel is closed for occupancy? And that's a question for you, Flynn.
As you heard the applicant state, they are still running the cogen equipment even though they don't have guests there at the facility in order to properly maintain the building and the systems. I think that's necessary. So I think coming back in 3 months would still be appropriate if that is your preference.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Are there any comments on it? Can you call the question?
Commissioner Irvin?
I'm sorry, I agree with the motion.
Commissioner Song?
Yes.
Vice Chair Maruzzi?
Yes.
And Chair Wormack?
Yes.
Motion passes
4-0. Moving right along to new business, Pinnacle Palms, and I'm assuming no one wants a break and we just want to finish the meeting. Pinnacle Palms LLC for a major architectural application for the construction of a 3,383 square foot house on a hillside lot and a request for an administrative minor modification for a front yard setback reduction and increase in building height located at 1731 Pinnacle Point, Lot 3, Zone PTD 79. Staff report, please.
Thank you, Chair. As you mentioned, this is the construction of a new single-family house in Pinnacle. As the applicant had mentioned, you have already seen and approved constructions on Lot 2, on Lot 7, and Lot 10. And now this is Lot 3. So Pinnacle currently has 3 houses that are constructed and have been there since the mid-2000s. If you look at your slides of the aerial of the development, you'll see that Lot 3 is between the new house that is under construction and then the neighbor to the east. So if I go through the slides, you have them in front of you. It's the request for the siting of the house. The front yard setback reduction is for a corner of the house, which will be at 15 feet, and then the garage will be 18 feet setback from the curb line or the property line. So the Planning Commission has granted similar reductions on the other lots for Lot 10 across the street, and this has also been done in other developments around the city, and the 18-foot reduction of the setback is to allow a car to be parked off of the street. So in this case, 2 cars would be able to be parked in the garage and then 2 cars on the driveway. If you look at the landscape plan, the AAC had reviewed this project back on January 21st, and they made several recommendations. One was that the landscaping be altered to provide privacy for the front elevation of the house. So the elevation of the house includes, and in your packet there's a series of 3D renderings of what the house will look like and how it will fit on the lot and how it relates to the other houses along the street. So if you flip to the first rendering of the house, you'll see that the front facade includes a glass wall. And that transpires the whole way to the rear of the house, and there's another glass wall on the back side, which is where the pool and the patio is. So the AAC was concerned about privacy, and could they add landscaping and boulders that would provide more privacy to the front of the house. They revised the landscape plan and added more landscaping and boulders. And then the AAC subcommittee, consisting of Member Walsh and Member Payline, reviewed those plans and are also requesting that the applicant consider adding a low wall between the sidewalk and the glass facade to provide more privacy. So the lot is slopes 10 feet difference from the upper portion of the lot to the lower portion of the lot. So in theory, the lot is sort of a split lot, or the house is where the garage is higher than the rest of the house. And internally, there's a staircase that will go from the garage into the main portion of the building. So it is a 3-bedroom house with landscaping, a pool, and a fire pit on the back side. One other issue that the AAC was concerned about is on the back side, there's an infinity edge pool, and how would the treatment be on the bottom side of the slope or at the bottom of the spillway of the infinity pool. The applicant has added landscaping and boulders that will sort of soften that edge of the pool, so that folks that live on Ridgemore, which is on the other side of the wash, will have a better view of the mountainside. One other issue that has been discussed is lighting. So the lighting on most of these houses is on the outside, on the fascia, or up on the underneath the eave of the house. So the applicant is proposing 2 lights on the front portion and 2 lights on the back portion. In your packet, there's discussion or emails from residents to you They are referencing a house that the developer has built off of South Palm Canyon Drive. I've been in that house. I did the final inspection, and it seems that it's not the lights on the exterior, it's the lights on the interior that are causing the questions there. In your other correspondence from the property owner on lot 4, he was asking what's the relationship between his lot and the new house. There's a cross-section that is included in your packet that shows how that house relates to the neighboring house. And also the renderings that have been provided show a streetscape of the house as it relates to the other houses in the neighborhood. So, Chair, that, I'm sorry, one other thing, the paint color, you have in your packet the paint scheme. I don't know, here it is. It's like 4 or 5 slides in. You'll see that the paint that's proposed is a light gray, and then an accent color is a darker gray. And all these, it's similar paint palette to the other houses that have been approved in the development. It is different from the 3 houses that are already constructed, which are more darker browns and beiges and tans. So, Chair, that concludes my report, and the applicant is available via phone.
Okay, we have 2 items in this. One, if I'm correct, is the minor modification on the setbacks, and the other is the major architectural, correct?
That's correct. So you're to review the major architectural for the design and landscaping of the house, and along with that is the setback reductions and then an increase in building height. I'm sorry, I forgot to mention that. So the maximum height that's permitted is 18 feet. They're asking for 19 feet 6, so an increase of 1.5 feet. The Planning Commission has granted other height increases on lots 2, 7, and I think 10 met the height requirement. So only the 2 other houses, the Planning Commission has granted an increase in building height. And it's comparable to what they're asking for in this house, and it's always a portion of the shed roof that jets above what is allowed.
Okay, questions for staff from the commissioners? Commissioner Maruzzi?
I was looking at some of the photographs that were provided by a member of the public showing one of the current houses in this development that is extremely bright in terms of the light being emitted from the interior. Did you address that issue, Mr. Malacker? You had said that you had realized that the issue isn't about exterior lighting, it's interior lighting, but were you there at night to see it? This looks extremely bright.
Right. I did the final inspection on the house probably 2 weeks ago, and there are 3 large chandeliers that are on the interior of the great room, which is this room that is all the glass that faces the pool and then South Palm Canyon. So I did observe the light inside. I did not. The lights were on, but it was daytime, so I couldn't tell if it was throwing light outside. But as you can see in this photograph, it is bright.
So when you say chandeliers, are those put in by the new owners, or are those built in as part of the design?
When the Planning Commission and staff reviews the building architecture, we look at exterior lighting. We did not look at the interior lighting. We don't know what the fixtures are inside the house. We don't know what countertops they're using or so forth. I'm not even sure if the plan check, the building permits would even show what type of lighting fixture this is.
I'm trying to remember these since we've approved these in the past. There was discussion. Was it Commissioner Hirschbein or one of the other architects who did bring up the issue of the interior lighting? I thought. Am I not remembering correctly? I thought there was discussion about lighting, but it was interior lighting. Is that not right?
There has been discussions of lighting for all of these houses, yes.
But interior I'm talking about, not exterior.
I think we've talked about interior lights, but it's difficult for the planning department to regulate interior lighting.
And again, that's because.
Well, let's say this house on Cantina Way or this lot 3 would be developed or bought by somebody who wanted to add another fixture, take an existing light hanging fixture and replace it with something that's brighter. We would have no jurisdiction over that.
But you would have jurisdiction over the actual design and the lights that are built in, right? Maybe not in terms of the wattage. I don't know. I mean, I'd like to hear from our Commissioner Song on this one, because I don't quite understand why, if it's part of the design, that couldn't be something that's addressed now as opposed to later or ever.
Commissioner Song?
Yes, we brought up this issue because of the design of the ceiling inside the underside of the roof. The applicant is not showing any soffits or any attic space. So the plane that you see on the bottom is the finished plane of the roof structure. I don't know if that makes sense. So when the applicant chooses to put pendants or recess cans, there is nothing that waffles or cuts off the light from the inside. And my recollection was that we were having a difficult time because we don't have jurisdiction on how it can be designed from the inside. But Commissioner Peter, you bring an excellent point, because it's still how it addresses our community and our neighborhood. And that is beyond the night light ordinance, as you can see in that photograph. So I think a couple of things that we can consider is that the interior lighting design, because of the glass exposure and because of the grade in which the house is situated, that it needs to be designed, and a photometric needs to be prepared, and it needs to be reviewed by the architectural advisory committee. But I'm saying all these things in which, again, we may not be able to get anywhere because we don't have jurisdiction of what the design is inside the envelope. But again, I'm saying that we do because of how much the light bleeds to the exterior of the parcel.
Is that correct, Mr. Malek? We have no jurisdiction over interior design, lighting, and so forth?
Let me jump in here. That is correct. In terms of the architectural review, the major architectural application, you are limited, as is staff, to looking at the exterior of the structure itself. Going into specifics of the city's lighting ordinance in our zoning code, our outdoor lighting ordinance, it only addresses outside fixtures. It does not place any limitations on fixtures on the interior of the building, nor does it talk about any bleed through in terms of large glazed areas. So while it is a concern, and we would ask for the applicant to use moderation in terms of the light fixtures that are selected for the interior, thinking of how they impact other residents, we don't have any jurisdiction over placing limitations there.
When do we have jurisdiction over the large glazed areas?
Not really, other than looking at the appropriateness, context, things like that. But you don't have any limitation over the square footage of the large glaze areas or whether or not they can have them. Ultimately, glazing and lighting are things that are dictated to a certain degree by the energy code, but other than that, we don't really have any ability to tell them not to be able to have large glaze areas or things like that.
And we can't require an exterior shade? that would mute the light at night?
To a certain degree, we have been able to do that in terms of encouraging shading of large glazed areas, primarily as it relates to sun control, because there is language in our architectural regulations about sun control. But that's about as far as it goes.
Is there something that we could do regarding sun control and overhang that might help this problem? Probably not.
I don't know that it would necessarily. I think they do have a number of fairly generous overhangs as it is. So I don't know that there's anything further that we can do.
Right, and the applicant has mentioned to me that to help with the privacy issue on the front, that they are installing shades, removable shades, and he may want to address that.
Commissioner Song?
The roof overhang helps during daylighting. The roof overhang will not help when the light source is from the inside. So, Commissioner Wormick, when you were mentioning about shading device, this is really shading devices that will be on the exterior of the clear story, in which it would cut off the source of light at nighttime. And that would be more of a vertical application.
Right, that's what I was thinking. It could be both prevent sunlight from coming in the daytime and preserve and keep the light from escaping at night.
Correct.
That's something we may want to ask the applicant about. Are there other comments? The items before us, the items that came from AAC were the privacy wall, this lighting issue that came from the neighbors, and the adequacy of a boulder application at the pool edge, so that it's not seen across the. It's not part of the neighbor's vista. And so before we call the applicant, I'm wondering if people have questions on the other items. Commissioner Song.
Yes, Glenn, could you take us to which exhibit shows the relationship of the adjacent property to the proposed home? Is that sheet A, Apple 5-1?
Glenn, that's a question for you.
Well, no, that, yes, that's the cross section. So it shows the height, and then plus the topography shows what the height of. So the upper house is at 618, and then the bottom of the lot is 613. So it slopes 7-8 feet. And they've also provided those 3D renderings of what the street would look like.
Okay. On that same exhibit, I see a tubular fence being shown on the site section.
Yes.
And I don't see tubular fence in the site plan. Oh, I see it. It's in the back.
It's in the back, yes. It goes, it's part of the pool barrier.
Okay, and Glenn, can you guide me to the exhibit in which it shows how the boulders are screening the swimming pool and back deck area?
So if you go to
Or is that
the landscape plan shows the mounding of the boulders. So the landscape plan and the precise grading plan. Precise grading plan sheet number 1 shows the boulders. And then the landscape plan L10-1C. So the plan that the AAC had reviewed did not have these boulder groupings at the back of the pool, the bottom of the pool. Did you see L1C?
Yeah, I see them. I see the precise grading plan showing elevation, and it says TOP, for example, top of, I don't know what P stands for. It's pointing to the boulders.
Right.
And it says 614.30. And the pool is, I believe, at 613. So the boulders are only the top of the boulders are only a foot higher.
Right. So I don't think it was meant to totally screen the wall. I think it's just to sort of soften the infinity pool edge.
I see. Okay, thank you.
Do people have more questions for staff, or do you have questions for the applicant? Shall we call the applicant back? Commissioner Maruzzi?
I don't know if we can ask him why he makes his interior so bright, since we have no jurisdiction over any of this. I mean,
we could ask him about the shading and whether he's willing to put in a shade that would block the light.
Okay, because I think the clear story that faces the rear is not a clear. It's actually solid. It's not a clear story. So maybe Commissioner Song could look at that. The rear elevation, these drawings here.
So the elevation page is A-4.1, and it says back elevation. So there is a wall of retractable glass, and there is a clear story window above the glass.
Well, these are not paginated.
No, there's no page on those, unfortunately.
So what were you referencing?
I'm referencing on the packet, the larger 11 by 17 sheets.
Yeah.
Sheet number A-4.1 is the building elevations.
Okay.
And you'll see that it has aluminum frame, clear anodized glass, and there's a clear story window above it, like a triangle.
Is it the rear?
On the rear. The back elevation, it's listed.
I guess the 3D rendering, I thought, showed that as being solid, but I was confused.
I think it's just the shading of it.
Well, it is kind of solid. Right there.
Yes, I'm
looking. Is that a shade that comes down?
No, I think it's just the 3D rendering makes it reflecting the ceiling inside is white. So I think it's a rendering shading.
All right. That's it. I mean, I don't know what to ask the applicant, so I have no other.
Maria, do you have questions of the applicant? Can you deal with the lighting issue with the applicant in any way?
No, my take about this project is the clear stories need to be either removed. The clear story, triangulated shades, clear stories either needs to be removed or they need to be permanently screened via a brisole or some sort of permanent, I don't want to say Bermuda shades, but that will give you an idea, in order to cut off the light from the inside and not bleed that light to the view of the community or the view to the mountains at dusk. Because I don't think.
So let me see. I don't think we need to talk to the applicant. The motion that I would make is that we approve the application with the recommendation of the AAC for the privacy wall in the front. We accept their recommendation for boulders to soften the infinity pool edge, and that we include Maria's conditions about the clear story, either that it be removed or that it be permanently, and you can help me with the language.
Screened.
Permanently screened with what?
With louvers or brise-soleil, I think is the actual term.
Right, staff
Fine.
has that. Mm-hmm.
So if we make that as a motion, would there be a second?
I just have a question.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a second. We can comment on the motion.
So when I look at these 3D renderings, there's clerestory on the front, and there's a clerestory at the rear. So are we talking about both sides, or just the rear, or?
It's the rear that staff, am I correct? It's the rear that is the issue?
Correct.
Correct, so just the rear.
So the light doesn't come out of the clerestory in the front?
In the back.
No, I understand the back, but it seems like looking at this picture, the light comes,
The front is less. The front is less of an issue because it faces inwards towards the development and towards the mountain instead of out towards the floor of the valley below.
I see. All right.
So we have a motion and a second. Are there other comments or suggested additions? And Maria, do you want that to go back to the AAC to be reviewed, or is this just a firm condition? I would say firm condition.
I agree.
Okay. And there being no comments, can you call the roll?
Commissioner Ervin?
I approve.
Commissioner Song?
Yes.
Vice Chair Maruzzi?
Yes.
And Chair Wormick?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay, Planning Commission reports, requests, and comments. Are there any? There being none, we will move right along to Planning Director's report.
Madam Chair, the only thing that I need to share with you is that our second meeting in the month of April will be canceled, and our next meeting of the Planning Commission will be on Wednesday, May the 13th.
Thank you. With that, I think the meeting is adjourned.
Okay. Thank you, everyone. Good night.
Good night, all.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.
Goodbye.